Hello, 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 hello. Okay, so what up? This is a YouTube stream. YouTube stream. We're gonna be looking at some stuff. Probably gonna play some Melty later and talk about the FGC. Okay, so starting off, what up, guys? Here back at it again with another video. And one thing that's kind of like a big problem with the FGC is something that I don't think is being talked a lot about, and it's just kind of like the overall um way that like money is being made. And I think overall like money is like a big problem with the FGC, because when you look at, for example, esports earnings, the FGC is not really in there in terms of players like top 100. Not really there. I mean, a lot of these people are actually in Dota 2. Like the top 38 are in Dota 2, and that's just because of the fact that of TI, and TI just has like such a big like prize pool. But as you go down, there really isn't any like Dota 2 stuff. No, not Dota 2, FGC stuff. You go to 200. Yeah, it's not really there. It's not really something that is going to be there in terms of money. Like, so the players aren't making money. A lot of the tournament organizers don't really make a lot of money. Some of them are even operating in like a loss. And really the only people that are kind of making money are like developers. And even then, I don't think that they are like largely profitable compared to specific like other genres of games, especially ones with like heavy microtransaction kind of stuff. And the thing is, like, with this type of like business model and how like they make money, like microtransactions versus like one big like a traditional game release, which is like, it's kind of like a weird thing, because I think that Japan in general hasn't really been, or at least like the way that fighting games has evolved from arcades into the home console, it really kind of molded into the way that home consoles were, um like the business model of home consoles. Now when you think of arcades, they profit from like one, selling the machines. I think that's probably how they make money. Yeah, selling the machines, and the owners profit by getting the coins or whatever. That's how they justify of selling the like the arcade cabinets. But then when you have like the home console way, you have games such as, like Demon Slayer. Like, this is a type of game where you sell it at a base price of $60-$70, kind of like traditional single player games. A lot of Nintendo games are like this. And then as it goes down, as like time goes by, it gets cheaper and cheaper. And the only thing that really matters is kind of like the overall like sales of everything. And the reason why I mentioned this is that every single fighting game, like, it might be a little bit weird because I'm using Demon Slayer here, but like every single fighting game kind of follows this trajectory, is that there's going to be peaks and valleys in terms of player base, coming from like at the start. I look at this, Demon Slayer peaked at 7.5k. You might even, like, for example, look at Guilty Gear Strive, because that's probably something that's a little bit more nuance, and a little bit more, what do you call this, like, it makes sense or whatever. But okay, so we're gonna look at Guilty Gear Strive. So at the peak at June 30th, it peaked at 11,000, and at 31 of July had 12k, and then at August it dipped down to 5, and then 12k again in August 27, and it went down and down and down. October 15, there was a little bit of a bump and went down. So let's look at this. August 27, what happened there? I can say my assumption is probably Jacko release date, right? Yeah, so Jacko released at August 27, and as you can see here, you got a small bump in player base back to 12,000. I mean, it's actually pretty cool that for like a month it did retain kind of like 10,000 mark. But after like July heading into August, it dipped down by half into the 5K, and then it dipped down all the way to 2K, which is now in October and early November. So looking at, for example, July 31, another peak that happened, that's probably Gold Lewis. July 27. Okay, so is this like one of the thing where it's like, okay, so season pass holders get him at 27, but July 30th is when the normal people get it. So I would argue that Jacko made like a bigger bump, but you could kind of see that maybe Gold Lewis affected like the 30 to 31 player base. And my point here is that every single fighting game has this type of, like when you can even look at October 15. October patch, Guilty Gear Strive. Yeah, dropping closer to the 15th. I don't know if that's actually... Okay, so it is the big update. October 15th. Little boost of player base from 2,000 all the way up to 5K. So the point here is that every single fighting game right now, or like the model that is being kind of portrayed, kind of led by Bandai Namco specifically, because this is same thing with like Tekken. Same thing with Tekken. And like they have like peaks and valleys and stuff like that. You know, it's the same thing with a lot of Bandai Namco games, is that they have like a really big release, and then after that they have like little small updates, little patches, new characters, and that's what brings people back. I actually haven't looked at Tekken. It's actually interesting the fact that there was actually a point where there was 12K people playing at May 2021. And I think this is probably the only fighting game where there was like a gradual increase, but now it's going back to like 5K to its average, like about its average. And with Tekken though, like it's kind of an outlier because of the fact that the overall hype for the game itself grew like sporadically, or like along with the hype of like TWT, the tournaments and things like that, you know. Like when it came out, it wasn't really popular, and you could show it in the graph themselves. But as like TWT, Evo, like a lot of YouTube videos, when you look at YouTube, for example, like you could look at Lil Majin Evo. Like these videos have like 2.4 million views, 4.2 million views, 4.9. Like two or 3 years ago, like that 2018, 2019 era was arguably the biggest Tekken has ever been, outside of like the release date of like Tekken 3 and things like that, you know. It's been the biggest for a long time. And so Tekken is kind of an outlier, because when you look at other games, for example, like Street Fighter 5, it still does that kind of thing. Like it peaked at 6K here, 8K at 2017. So that's probably Champion Edition. then it goes up and down over there. No, that is arcade edition, champion edition, and then new patches or whatever, you know? So my point here is that a lot of newer multiplayer games have these peaks a lot more often, or a lot bigger peaks in terms of stuff, you know? Like the point, like the thing is that like the most important thing about multiplayer games, or just games in general right now, is player retention. You want your players to be able to, one, play your game for X amount of time, but at the same time you want people to have something to like come back to, something to be excited for. And that's what League of Legends is really like good about. You could even like look at like Fortnite, Apex Legends. Like Apex Legends has their new season coming out with like Escape or whatever. I don't know what it's called, but the idea is that like in fighting games, there's not really a lot of things to get excited about. There's not a lot of things for new players to get into, and there's not a lot of things for older players that might have dropped the game to get back into. Like for example, this season, I did stop playing League of Legends for a little bit, and then with the new season coming out, with Worlds like around the corner, or like it's still happening right now, I decided to get back to gold, maybe push for plat, because there was something to look forward to. It was something new, something fresh, and that made me want to play more League of Legends. Same thing with TFT. The new set is out. It looks really fun. It looks really interesting. There's a lot of new things that you could do with the characters, and I want to play that game now because there is something to look forward to. The reason why like having new stuff is really important in video games specifically, compared to like, for example, sports, or like chess is another thing that is being like talked a lot about, is that like player base is really important in video games in general, because that is what drives like money. Like that's how you make money in video games. You need like a large player base, a really big following that just gives you money in terms of microtransactions specifically. And the reason why like new like it's important for new things to be there is that like it's like it like video games are your free time, right? And it's always going to be juggled about a lot of different things. You know, like you could go like watch a movie, watch television, or like read books or whatever, and this free time is being kind of like battled by a lot of different things, and having something new in like a game makes it so that you want to come back and play it, you know? Like retention is just overall, I think, part of fighting games that is not really as important, because of the overall business model is led to kind of selling characters, season passes, and also selling like the base game itself. And also with a lot of these microtransaction type games is that they are free to play. So the way to actually get into the game, get back into the game, is not a lot of resistance compared to if I want to get into Dragon Ball FighterZ right now and I want all the characters, for example. That would be like, I would have to like maybe wait for a sale because I don't want to play for the Ultimate Edition. And if I buy everything, that's going to be like over $100 if I buy it not on sale. Like it's just like a whole like situation in terms of like money wise. So there's like more resistance in that type of way, you know? And then, yeah, because it's like the weirdest thing. Like, for example, like I think it's just for casuals in general and like retaining like a bigger player base. It is important to have like new updates and stuff like that, because I think that's what noobs really want, like what plebs really want, is that having something to just kind of makes the game fresh. Because I think casuals just really just want to have like a good time. And then like with like for example like Melee, if you look at Melee, it's like it's been like the same game for like 20 years now, right? Like Melee as like a platformer, it's like basically been the same thing, and like people are like huge nerds when it comes to Melee. And even though like it's like a really technical game, and it's actually pretty huge, when you look at Slippy overall and like the leaderboards, there's not really like a lot of people playing it in terms of like comparing it to something like Counter-Strike, Dota 2, and things like that, you know. And because also when you look at the like the overall competitiveness of a game, like would Melee be as competitive if there was like more people playing it? Like for example, one of the main like bad things about Melee is like the fact that like Japan doesn't play Melee. You know, like Japan, like arguably one of the most important part of like fighting games in general is that they play more of like what do you call this, like the current Smash. So like they play Ultimate, or they played what do you call this, like Smash 4. And they're not even really like, I would argue that they're not as competitive in those games. I mean, they are competitive. Like you have players like Proto Banham, of course that one guy, I forgot his name. I just know Proto Banham because he plays Lucia. Not Lucia. He plays the sword girl, Mart and Lucina. Yeah, he plays Lucina. So, but it's also like really hard, because if you're like a young kid from like Japan, and then if you want to be competitive at Smash, you would have to like go to North America to like compete. You can't just like go to local events in Japan to what do you call this, like be known or something, you know. And the overall probably like the other thing is like the overall like metrics of like how to make money is different. Because if you're like a Japanese player trying to cater toward North American audience, then you're not going to be able to sell stuff easily, because there's just a disconnect between you being Japanese and them being American. And this was something that actually happened in, for example, in the LEC, in terms of like marketing, is that they had a hard time selling a lot of products in terms of their sponsorships, because of the fact that LEC is like Europe. There's like France, there's like Germany, there's like Spain. And if you're marketing, for example, Logitech as a product in LEC or Europe, that's just too vague, and the target audience is too vague to kind of what do you call this, like to really own into. Which is why, for example, in Europe, the ERL, or just kind of like European country leagues, is actually pretty important, because they have a lot of smaller leagues, like I think the LVP, the FLA in France, LVP in Spain, is that these specific leagues has their own like sponsorships or whatever. And because of that, even though like for example Logitech would sponsor like LEC, these other things would be able to sponsor, for example, LVP would be able to be sponsored by Logitech Spain, while the FLA would be sponsored by Logitech France. You know, and having those sponsorship is a lot more important, because of the fact that if you are a French team, you can sell stuff to French people easier compared to selling to like the Spanish people, and it just makes sense. And also, this is also a thing that happens a lot in fighting games. For example, what's his name? Itabashi Zangief. I remember watching this guy play on stream, and I thought it was really interesting because I saw this. I saw this one thing. I was like, okay, wow, this is a Logitech logo. This is Logicool. I don't know what Logicool is, so I looked it up. Is this like a counterfeit Logitech brand? What is this? Let's look at this. You know the difference between Logitech and Logicool. We all know popular brand Logitech, also known as Logi. But what is Logicool? When I finally came across his name, I thought it's a bunch of fake brand trying to duplicate Logitech products. Same thing as me. When a friend of mine asked me about this, if he tested for a while, and he was on listings, it's because of likely because of the Japan market. Mostly, there's apparently a company called Logitech in Japan, and it's trademarked by them. So Logitech renamed themselves as Logicool to sell their products. That's another thing. You know, like Itabashi Zangief is not gonna have Logitech on his jersey because there's another company called Logitech in Japan. It wouldn't make sense. Why would he have that sponsor on his shirt? That's why he has Logicool on his shirt, because Logicool is this is Logitech in Japan. You know, like also the other thing, like for example, like it never made sense to me. Like for example, with like UAU, is that their sponsors are like what do you call this? So they're sponsored by like I think it was like G Fuel or like fucking Astro or something. Like okay, so let's look at this. Astro. They're sponsored by Astro, right? Astro is a very popular gaming peripheral company, specifically I think in the console market. Because I remember when I first wow, RZA is in UIU. That's amazing. Wait, what is this? Okay, that's not like RZA. Okay. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that like they have Astro as a partner, as a brand or whatever, right? If they have like they have a member or whatever, which is let's look at Tekken 7. They have Lohai, John Ding, and UYU. So John Ding and Lohai are Korean. UYU is Japanese. In Korea, where can you buy Astros in Korea? Like, how easily available are Astro headsets in Korea or in Japan? When you look at, for example, let's look at Twitch. I mean, this is not like a very like what do you call this, like scientific analysis, but let's look at the tag Japanese, and let's see like someone like maybe wearing a headset. The guy's not wearing a headset. Okay, apparently. I mean, yeah, this is not okay. Well, the point here is that like it's probably like really hard or like not really as accessible if like to buy a Logitech headset in Japan and or Korea. I don't know if it's like readily available in that place. You know, like people could just buy in their local like store, buy like an Astros headset with an Astro mix amp. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm gonna say probably not. Same thing with like Japan. I don't think Astros are very popular in Japan. I would say uh like HyperX's maybe, or like um Logical, like I don't know. So that's like always kind of like been like a weird thing to me. And looking at UIU, they always have like new content creators or like new members, and they always drop people like what's his name? Like Double not League of Legends, Tekken 7. Like Double was actually super sick. Double played uh Lee, or like Lee, no, not Lee, Law. He played Law, right?
Oh
And,
yeah.
and this guy was actually really good. He made it to Summer Jam top 2. Yeah, in this tournament he made it to top 2. He won that Korean tournament, the OSL, and actually beat Nee at the finals. And he also made it to 2019 Tekken World Tour. So Law's really good, playing an arguably broken character that no one really thinks is broken, but I think he's actually like broken. Like Law is really stupid. Like he just has while standing 4 counter hit into the bullshit. So this guy is like really good, right? But they dropped him. He didn't play for UIU anymore. Now why? I would think that one of the main reasons why is that he actually didn't stream a lot in Twitch. He didn't stream in Twitch, but he did stream in... He streamed on YouTube. Let me see if I can find his YouTube account. He streamed a lot on YouTube, and I think a lot of Japanese players, like earlier on, were streaming a lot on YouTube. I know, for example, Kazunoko streams on YouTube, but I think also a lot of Japanese Tekken players were streaming on YouTube. Okay, I can't find it, but now he streams on Mildom, which makes sense because Mildom's like the Japanese Huya TV. But anyway, like, they dropped this guy. Now he's with Gyu Gun, probably a Japanese sponsor, which makes sense. But like they dropped this guy, even though he had way better results than, for example, John Ding. Like John Ding was like all over the world, basically trying to scour for points, because this dude was like playing like this dude was sick in 2018, right? He made it to he won CEO against, pretty sure, against Kudans. We'll just let that rock for a little bit. Kudans versus John Ding. That's CEO Grand Finals, right?
I mean, he did a combo breaker. He's doing it here. But man, you guys...
that's a pretty sick run, though, right? He beat Kudans in the first quarter. No, he lost to Kudans. And then he had to play Book and Lomajin. And Lomajin this tournament was really good because he beat both Jimmy J Tran and Dimeback 2-1 back-to-back, And Lomajin at this year was looking really strong. And this was the year before... This was the tournament before EVO, I think. Because I think EVO is always before CEO. And he made it all... And also JDCR. He beat JDCR 3-2. Really good set by him.
See it. This is what we're in, really, really game. Right?
So he was like super sick. But in like 2019, let's just check it. In 2019, he was like in South America. He was like in Greece. He was like everywhere, dude. Let's look at this. Yeah, he went to Dubai, DreamHack Atlanta, Tekken World Tour Finals, LCQ, Tekken Tokyo, Tekken Masters, Berlin, Tekken Clash. Not a lot of players actually went to that, I'm pretty sure. Electric Cancel. He was in Electric Cancel. He lost to Jimmy J. Tran. Rev Majors, Clash of the Olympians. That's the Greek one. FV Cup is the Thailand one. Evo. Tiger Uppercut. CEO. I think this is Japan. I don't know what that is. But like, especially like at this moment, like I'm pretty sure like what he said was like he was like trying to play catch up basically because he was like playing a lot of Street Fighter like at this time. Like early Street early parts he was playing a lot of Street Fighter. And he actually did beat John Ding did beat I think Fujimura. I think he beat Fujimura. Let's actually look at that. I think he did beat Fujimura. No, CEO 2019. 2018? 2018, 2019. No, I think it's 2019. I think he beat Fujimura. And I think Fujimura like almost won. I'm pretty sure Bonchan won. I'm like 90% sure Bonchan won. Yeah, Bonchan did win. But Fujimura, yeah, he did lose to John Ding. Oh my god, dude. Yeah, he lost to John Ding. John Ding is nice at Street Fighter 5. This dude plays Rashid. Yeah, he plays Rashid. But anyway, like the point was that like John Ding had a very poor 2018. Double had a amazing 2019. He had poor 2018. Double had made 2019. But they dropped Double instead. Now, why did they keep John Ding? Especially these three. John Ding, what's his name? Lohai and Yu Yu. Now, I would say, like, maybe also, like, to put it into perspective, they might, like, maybe Double left, didn't want to be there. Because Double also did play in, like, a SoCal. He was, like, in a lot of, wow, he actually hasn't been streaming a lot lately. Yeah, why? What happened? He just kind of like went away. Okay, well, this guy, even though it's not here, this guy used to stream a lot. Like, crazy amounts, actually. Same thing with you. You streams crazy amounts. Like 1 hour a day, 3 hours a day. 2 days ago, 2 hours. 2 days ago, so he gets 4 hours. 2 days ago, another hour, 3 day. Playing with the Switch. Wow, he streams Switch like that. That's insane. But like Yu, Lohai, John Ding, they all stream for like crazy hours. Like, dude, 8 hours, 4 hours, 9 hours. So my assumption would be like UYU kept these three people specifically to like I mean, this is like maybe they just like them, you know, maybe they're just like cool or whatever. Maybe they bring something else that we don't know about. My idea is like they brought him on for like this dude played 10 hours of StarCraft. Not just StarCraft 2, he played Brood War. But like for sponsors, because like if you want to get sponsors for your brand, one thing that you have to put up is that you need to have like streaming numbers, and not just like viewer count, but like specifically like total hours watched and number of unique viewers and things like that, because again it kind of goes back into the main point, is that it doesn't make sense for John Ding specifically to be in a North American brand, because of the fact that a lot of the stuff that he is sponsoring personally is not suitable for a Korean audience. Now, if you look at someone like, for example, Nee, I just look up Nee on YouTube. No, that's not it. Like, Nee has like a huge presence in Korean Tekken scene. Like, this dude has 215k subs on YouTube, which is arguably mostly Korean. He has like a video that has like 2.6 mil, 2.3 mil, 1.1 mil. A lot of viewers, I would argue, from Korea mostly. And then his stream is, he streams on Africa, which is a Korean streaming website. So it makes sense for him to be sponsored by a Korean team, which I actually think Rock's Dragons is Japanese. Like they are mainly focused on Japanese, like on Japan. I think, I'm not sure. I'm not like 100% sure, but it makes sense for Nee specifically to be sponsoring like, what do you call this, like Korean stuff, And also like John Ding, like these players, he don't give a fuck about who's sponsoring them necessarily, because they just want to be able to get that free flight, get that free food and services, so that they can play Tekken at the highest of level, as they did before back in 2019, but can't anymore because FGC events are not as reliable as other tournaments or whatever. Yeah, so like the other thing was like I had a hard time kind of explaining why, like, for example, like noobs or plebs or just like casuals in general like want new updates, because yes, it is true that, for example, basketball has never changed, or like basically the same thing. The only thing that changes are specific rules that are specifically catered towards the high 0.1%, which is like in the NBA, might be trickling down into the high school college system. But for the most part, it hasn't changed. 3-pointers basically the same thing, 2-pointers or whatever. And like, why is, for example, like that why is like that still like really popular, or like still like really big? And when you look at, for example, chess has not changed. It's the same thing, but people still play it. I guess like one of my first argument was like definitely we'll play some Genshin for a little bit though, because I need to do my artifacts. We'll switch to Genshin. We'll turn off the display capture. I need to do my specific stuff, dude. So If this doesn't work, I'll just do display capture. Like a noob. Because I think I had to run it in administration mode. I'm like 80% sure. Wait, am I stupid? Wait, what the heck? I hope I don't get hacked. Oh no, okay, well, we're not playing Genshin, I guess. Let's just play Multi-Blood.
Type Moon. Delight Works. フランスパン。
Yeah, like, so, like, the thing is,
セレクト Your Character。任せて。みんなやっつけ任せて。みんなやっつけちゃうから。
shit is so loud. Dude, I hate like how this fucking game
Melty Blood。
is like the loudest thing in the whole world.
セレクト Your Character。
This game's sick though,
ここに契
right?
約
It's
は
pretty
完了
cool.
した。
Like, I don't know how to play it
よ
yet.
ーし、やっちゃいまし
I
ょ
know
う。
I'm gonna win Evo someday. But like, is that like, there's nothing like, you really have to like, kind of like put yourself in like, have like your own like, type of like motivations or whatever to
どうする？
be able to maybe like lower this fucking volume.
やはりいきなりホールは。 やはりいきなりホールは。 どうかされましたか？
What I'm saying is like if you don't have a local that gives you like some sort of like motivation, or like if you're not striving to be the absolute best, there's really like, or like if you don't find, even if you just like liked playing ranked, for example, so that's like the only like way. It's the only way for you It's like the only way for you to actually have fun with the game, right? It's like rank. So the only thing I do is grind rank. But like a lot of these games, like grinding rank is probably not as like, for example, fun compared to like grinding in like Valorant or like Overwatch, Hearthstone, or whatever, you know? It's probably like not as satisfying compared to those games, even if you love that specific game the same amount, in my opinion, because there's no like, the rank system's just really bad, you know? And you're probably gonna get less players when you go into higher lobbies, and then the netcode starts being like really fucking weird because the fact that your players you are playing are gonna be a little bit farther in terms of distance, and then I actually don't know specifically for this game, like how the rank system works, but for example for Tekken, it's going to be like same things that I said before, and then there's no like decay system, so the leaderboards kind of mean nothing because of the fact that it doesn't really show you like who's has the most points, who's grinding the most, or whatever. Those are things that are important to apparently parent. I don't know, like the buttons are like messed up. That's what I'm saying. But like, yeah, like it's probably not as satisfying. But well, if you get good at Valorant, for example, you would have like a lot of stream. Like, you could probably stream, get a little bit of viewers, play with pro players a lot, even though like. Even like the distance doesn't matter that much compared to, it matters but not as much compared to fighting games. Like you would probably have to play in like mid like Texas servers, and the worst you could probably have is like 60 ping, which is pretty bad in Valorant compared to like 5 or like less than 30 ping. But it's manageable. It's manageable compared to like one-sided rollback, delay-based netcode, things of that sort. So you would have like, you could probably have like a popping stream. Like the rank system's actually kind of like rewards you because it has like a good leaderboard. Like you can see like, oh, I'm Radiant, and Radiant actually means something in that game. And then also, like no matter like what place you are in the leaderboard, you could be like, oh, that dude's ranked 1. And then if you do good in these Radiant lobbies, people are gonna be like, hey man, we should try this guy out. Maybe he's like the next tens. Maybe he's like a Sinatra or something. And then you get on the team, and then you make a lot of cash and whatever. Like there's like a path to pro just by playing online. Just sick, Now in fighting games, it is pretty cool. Like, I think Brian F made a video, and the main gist of it is that like, hey man, like fighting games might not have this, might not have that, but if you're fucking good, you can win Evo. Like, let me get a controller. Okay, let me practice my combos. Like this game's actually pretty simple. Like you could just mash A, and like that could be like a decent combo enough, right? Because with Saber, the only thing you need is like a mix up at the end, after you do your combo. Just reset them. Oh my god. Yeah, I actually don't play this game a lot. But but like that point that Brian F's video was trying to make was that like if you're good in fighting games, there's a chance for you to win a tournament because it's like open brackets, right? The open bracket system, anyone can play. It treats everyone equally. It's kind of like communism. It's a communist bracket basically. It's a socialist bracket. Everyone's the same. Even if you like win like a million tournaments, you've won Evo 40,000 times, you might be seated a little bit higher up, but you're basically playing to get out of pools, get into top 16, top 34, whatever it is, and then try to win the tournament. Now, if you're a top player, it might be a little bit easier for you because you don't have to like, let's actually just do, what do you call this? Let's do mission 1. Let's do the Shiki. Okay, so if it's like, what was I gonna say? If it's like, forgot. This is like exactly like fucking, what's it called? It's exactly like, Under Night. I mean, it's the same guy. But anyway, like, the idea was like that, right? So if you're like good at fighting games, you could just like enter a tournament and then win or whatever. And like, yeah, it's like kind of like if you're like a sponsored player, it's a little bit easier for you because you don't have to worry about like, hey man, I need to take off from work, use my sick leave. Like that was like one of the main reasons why, for example, Nomajin wasn't able to get too many tournaments in. What the heck is this? Wow. Mada. I think that means like no, not yet. What is this? Okay, so if you parry while you're like bursted or whatever, you could do that. Okay, cool. Okay, so what is this? Wow. What the heck is that? Yeah, so like if you're like a top tier, you don't have to worry about jobs. Like no Majin again, that was one of the main reasons why he didn't enter a lot of tournaments in 2019, because of the fact that he didn't have a job and he had to use a lot of his sick days. So really, he really only had like Summer Jam. He didn't go to CAO, I think. No, he did go to CAO, but didn't do very well. He didn't go to Combo Breaker. He didn't. Yeah, he went to Combo Breaker, Summer Jam, and Evo, right? And he didn't do well in all three of those tournaments. He did beat Jimmy J Tran in 2019 Evo, but overall he didn't do very well in those tournaments. I think he did go to Summer Jam. I'm not sure though. But I know for sure he went to CEO and Evo, because that was Hot Mess Gravity or whatever, no Majin. So if you're like a quote unquote sponsored player, but like there's like levels to it, right? If you're like a hot mess, gravity low, Majin, or whatever, you're probably not gonna be able to like probably still have a job or whatever. Probably have maybe your flight's paid, but like probably have to use your money in terms of like expenses. So yeah, it could be like a little bit troubling in terms of that part of it. I feel like a Taquito or like a Punk, you don't have to worry about like calling off work or like so yeah, you have to call work or like many issues and things like that. You can just go to tournament. So that's like kind of like a problem, right? But then like let's compare it to, for example, like my main problem with it is that it caters specifically towards like North American players, because we have like the most tournaments. Like it was really weird because in like, for example, 2019, Shadow, like I'm not shitting on Shadow. Like Shadow's a really good player. He's really probably one of the top 5 players in North America, right? In Tekken 7. Like Shadow's really good. He can beat some Koreans. He can beat some like international opponents. Europe's like super easy though. Like they're actually trash. Just kidding. But like he was one of the people that was comfortably in Tekken World Tour. And I think this is probably going to be like a problem if Tekken World Tour happened like 2020 and 2021. Is that like these kind of like tours, they cater so heavily towards like North American what do you call this, like competitors, because there's just more tournaments here. That's just the fact of it. And because there's more tournaments, more locals, more regionals and things like that, it's way easier to get points. Like JDCR had to like live here for like a month or two to be able to get into what do you call this, like Tekken World Tour. Same thing with Q-Dance, and he didn't even make it, you know. So if you're like from North America, I would argue that the chances of, or like you have to still be good though, right? But it's a lot easier for you to get into this tournament and actually win it. Like Idom, that's like the main argument, right? It's like Idom, like he was nobody, then he became something because he won Capcom Cup. But like, here, let's look at it. I don't know if this has everything, but okay, so this is 2019. He went to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 events. Now he did win an online event against Burkish, and he was third in East Coast Throwdown, which I'm pretty sure did not have any. Yeah, it did not have any Japanese opposition. CPT regional finals, he was 5th, 6th. Again, not a lot of Japanese opposition from what I can tell. I think this was just like a North American regional though, so that might be a little bit weird. And first attack, there was actually some Japanese opposition there, and also some European. I think Luffy was there too. Luffy, Idom, but not a lot of the big boys, right? Oh yeah, I guess there were some big boys there, because Fudo's there, Daigo, or whatever. Luffy actually made, that's interesting. But anyway, like he was 4th there, 3rd in East Coast Throwdown. He lost to Knuckle Dew, 3-0, lost to 801 Strider, 5th, 6th, but he did win Capcom Cup. So he had to go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and not even like win most of these. And he was good enough to actually, let's look at this more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so he went to 9. But again, he won 1, Defend North. That's like the New York event. Nobody's there. He was 8 in Combo Breaker. Didn't do very well in CEO. So he just went to 9 events and he was able to get the Capcom Cup. Now, if you're like in Europe or like in any other country, it's gonna be a lot harder for you to be able to get into Capcom Cup. Like you would have to try to do the LCQ as your main way of trying to get there, because if it's gonna be really hard for you to get points of trying to like actually make it through points, because a lot of these players are sponsored and then they can go to events, or a lot of these players are American or like North American and they can just fly to these events a lot easier. Like think about it, if you're in Europe and or Asia and you have to go to like Thailand and you're from Japan, that's not just like a regional flight. It's not like you're just going to like for example, like going to from New York to Florida. That's going from Japan to Thailand, and it's not the same thing as going from like Toronto to Florida too. Like even though they're different countries, they are like they speak English and they're very similar. You know, like you're basically going to another country at that point, you know, which is basically what you are doing. And that's kind of like a big deal, you know, for these like European, Middle Eastern, South American players. They don't really get a lot of exposure in this system that they are trying to do, because of the fact that it caters heavily towards North American players. So yes, like I mean, Item's still godlike. Like he has like a pretty like have been really interesting to see what he was able to do after Capcom winning Capcom Cup. Like if COVID didn't happen, like what would he be like in 2020, in 2021? Like the Punk versus Item was mainly online, which is like not really interesting to me, because that's just like NLBCs or whatever, you know, maybe some like Capcom Cup qualifiers, the online events, but they're not really that interesting in my opinion, right? So with that in mind, like Item's like the most important, like the biggest example of that. The other one is like Arslan Ash, and he literally had to go through like so many hoops and hurdles to be able to win Evo Japan. In that one moment, you know, he had to like go through a lot of customs, a lot of like, flying, going from Pakistan to Japan, dealing with customs, barely making it to the tournament, and then like and because of that one win, he was able to actually like travel and go to like other events and do well late into the season, not even early into the season. He didn't go to Mixed Masters in France and like the earlier tournaments like CEO, Combo Breaker, that London event, no, the British event, I forgot what it was called. He didn't go to those tournaments, you know. He went after when he got sponsored by Red Bull, and then he started going to more tournaments, you know. So it's like if you're two examples of like, yes, like fighting games are like, because it's open bracket, anyone could be like a big player. It kind of falls short in my opinion, because one, it caters towards a lot of North American audience or North American people in general, and two, like you would have to go through leaps and bounds like what Arslan Ash did, which is amazing, you know, to be able to compete at a high level. And also, like, I'm not saying that like Items like shit or like Arslan Ash is shit, because they are very, very good players, you know. Like Items really, really sick, Arslan Ash is really, really sick, and it sucks that their kind of like rise to fame was kind of hindered by COVID. Like yes, Arslan Ash did have a pretty sick run after 2019, specifically with the Pakistanis, like Bilal, the Akuma players. I forgot their names, but those guys were really good. It sucks I forgot their names, but a lot of like the Pakistani did kind of show up after like the second season of Tekken World Tour. And that was really sick to see, but I wanted to see more from Arslan Ash because he did kind of fall. Like he had a really poor showing at Tekken World Tour finals, you know, which is like those two events, like Evo and Tekken World Tour, are probably the most important events. He showed up at Evo Japan, and he showed up at Evo, normal Evo, but he didn't show up in like the second Evo Japan 2020, even though that one was kind of a troll because that was like a Leroy event only, because that was like, yeah, that was kind of a troll event because Leroy was just super strong. And then like Tekken World Tour finals, so he didn't do good there, right? And then comparing that to like, for example, a lot of like traditional esports stuff. And traditional esports stuff, you just have to grind the ladder. You have to be good to grind the ladder. If you're like in the League of Legends and you can't get, for example, like Challenger, that means you're just actually trash, right? You have to be able to grind the ladder, and then like it's really cool because it's actually kind of interesting because like, for example, in Korea, getting like top like 100 in the Korean server in League of Legends, like people will just throw contracts at like $30,000 contracts at you for no reason from like China or like Korea. Like for example, SKT T1 known as T1 right now, their teams are very young. Like owner is like 17 years old, born in 2002, Kana 2000, Korea 2002, Gumayushi 2002, and then they have like a bunch of what do you call this, like academy players. Zeus 2004, Cuz is a little bit older at 1999, Closer at 2003, Teddy at 1998, he's the oldest there, and Hoyt at 1999. Like these players were all scouted from their academy team, and their academy team was all scouted from the solo queue ladder. Like Zeus was a solo queue star. He was like 17 or 16, 15 or whatever, and he was like rank 1. So like, okay, this guy is actually just really good. And because of that, they just gave him contracts, and now he is like in the main team, even though he's a sub. He first became academy, and then he became a sub. And it's even crazier if you think about, for example, China. Like China, LPL, like for example, the Shy. Like this guy was scouted from, like he's only 21, which is insane. Because I feel like this guy has been here forever. So yeah, so like the Shy was a member of Anarchy, I assume a Korean team, and joined Team WE as a streamer. So basically when he was like a young kid, he was scouted, and then he moved to China to become a streamer, and then after that he became a player for IG, which is Invictus Gaming, which is a world champion. They became world champions in 2018, you know? Like, you still have like, I wouldn't say like, there's probably benefit from one way to the other. Like there's different ways of like grinding to be a pro, right? And I would argue that in League of Legends or like in other games, like in Counter-Strike, you would have to be playing a lot of cash cups. And what are these cash cups in, for example, in, what do you call this, like CSGO, ESEA cash cups? You would have to be just like grinding these tournaments a lot and trying to grind like a bunch of qualifiers, a bunch of like small tournaments, and maybe get into a big tournament, and then you show up with your team or whatever, right? So this is kind of like an open system, but there are like levels to it, you know? There's like qualifications, which is like every other thing in every other sport in the world. you know, because there's no like actual open bracket system for any sport. I don't think so. Like you can't, there's no, to become a pro you don't have to like play in like an open bracket tournament in basketball, and even though you then fight like LeBron James, like the Lakers at round 1, like that's not a thing, you know. So basically in Counter-Strike you would have to grind cash cups, get really popular as a team, maybe make it to Mountain Dew League, which is like the second type of league system from Pro League, which is the main system for Counter-Strike. Then maybe after that you like become really good or whatever. Like one of the main teams that was able to do this kind of way of becoming really good Counter-Strike was Gambit. Like Gambit are major winners. They're like a really actual popular team, but their lineup is actually pretty young, and a new like lineup with like Exile, Hobbit, Shiro, Nafani. I actually don't know a lot about these people, but these guys are pretty like young, and they were just grinding on cash ups to become really good, and now they're like top team in the world, you know. Like yes, like of course, like because it's like Gambit, they're like a popular org, they did have a little bit of a heads up because of the fact that they have a major org backing them, but they still had to be good to be in the like the top leagues or whatever, right? So that's like my like problem with this system in terms of like Capcom Cups and stuff like that. And I think as time goes on, as it becomes bigger and bigger, this would be highlighted a lot more. And I feel like I knew where this was gonna go if we kept doing this kind of like Capcom Cup World Tour type style willy-nilly, you know, because the way that Capcom and Tekken are doing it is that they're really just kind of like letting the community like just do a lot of tournaments and not being very hands-on with it. And because of that, they don't like, they're kind of like half and half, you know. You could either just be like, hey, fuck it, just do whatever the fuck you want, or you take control, you know, and you do whatever you fuck you want in terms of the tournament system or whatever, you know. And the thing is, like, Capcom Pro Tour, like, even though it's sponsored by Capcom, like, it's Street Fighter V is a game that is distributed or like created by Capcom, and Capcom is an organization that takes care of lots of other games. Like one of the things that made me realize this was that, like, I saw this video of like day in the life Paolo from Tokyo, right? Let's look at this ad real quick. Okay, another ad. My point is that, like, this is how it looks, and basically what they're trying to say is that they have, like, what they're trying to show is like they have specific teams to do specific stuff, you know, and it's like a very company-based thing. So for example, I think these guys were working on the anime Dark Souls game that came out, Code Vein or whatever, and it's only like a very small team. Yeah, they were doing Code Vein. Yeah, and like this was their meeting, whatever. There's like 3 people, or whatever, and they were probably doing like something specific about it, about Code Vein. My point is that, like, Bandai Namco, they do a lot of different games, and there are probably a lot of really small like groups working on specific games, and each like developer, each like designer or whatever, each person that does whatever the fuck is probably like passed around a lot. No one's actually, or not a lot, there's probably not a lot of people that are like just working on Tekken for the rest of your life. They sign up for Bandai Namco to just work on Tekken. There's probably not like a 30 group of people that are like, okay, we are the art people, we are the You know, like what I'm trying to say? It's not like a system that just focuses on one thing. Because they're like a publisher, they focus on a lot of different things and have like smaller teams that are made up of like people from the company themselves. Because when you look at, for example, like this, like look at this, it's kind of like what do you call this, like Silicon Valley Pied Piper kind of thing, where like these guys are just all working on Valorant, a whole basically floor working on just one game, and that's the only thing that they do. They just work on Valorant. And they probably have a lot more people like all over the world or whatever that just also work on Valorant. And the point here is that like when these people like put a lot of effort into one game, and they're only signing up for one game in the long term, you know, because like for example, like you might have one music producer for Street Fighter 5 that only does this job for Street Fighter 6, but he might not come back for Street Fighter 7. You know, like it's kind of like that scenario when it comes to what do you call this? Like it's kind of like that scenario when it comes to fighting games, because it's not just they're like Capcom, Bandai Namco, they have a lot of different games. Look at Bandai Namco right now. They're doing like Elder Souls, they have Elden Ring, they have like, they do like anime games like Kimetsu no Yaiba, Scarlet Nexus, they have Dark Souls, Park Beyond, One Piece, Digimon Survive, Tales of Rise. Like if you had like a group of 50 people working on each game, you know, do they really have like 50 people that are just dedicated for Digimon Survive? Or is it more likely that some people that are working on Digimon Survive are also working on One Piece Grand Chase? I don't know. I'm not a developer at a major game retailer, Japanese game retailer, so I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating here, but I think it's more likely that they just kind of pass it around and work on specific stuff, and just by looking at that one video, again, I don't know, I don't fucking know anything. So yeah, that's just like a point, you know. And that, again, that also goes back into like the whole business model. Like if you just need 50 dudes to like work on one game, to work at the start, and then maintenance just like 10 dudes just like to maintain the overall like game or whatever, you know. So like 50 dudes to make the game, then 10 dudes for maintenance, which is perfectly fine. That works. Works for a lot of single player games, but I don't know if it works for a competitive video game that you want to last for a long time. So anyway, we're gonna play some Melty Blood. I think I already did this. Wow, this combo is really sick. Oh, this combo is also sick. Another sick combo. Oh, what? Okay, let's not do this once. Okay. Okay, I messed up. I'm not gonna. Okay. Yeah. Dude, I hate, like, I don't know why, but sometimes, like, with these type of combos, I come from Tekken, right? We don't do, like, jump cancels, air dashes, anything like that. Tekken, as a game, is, like, very different from an air dasher. Like this game. It's very different, right? Heck, I'm tired, dude. I think I'm done after this. Well, anyway, thank you for watching the stream. I'll come back tomorrow.